I'm here to do my Glock 43 breakdown video. See if I can get that more in frame there. So I got my pistol right here. I got two totes to put parts in, and I also have a punch set. Now, I did do this project earlier this week, but I didn't know that we were supposed to film it, so I just took a bunch of pictures. So that might be why you see a bunch of pictures on my other assignment discussing this breakdown. But I'm going to film it and show you how to break it down properly. So let's get started. So to begin with, I'm going to make this weapon clear and safe. First, we're going to drop out the magazine. We're going to remove this from my workspace because I really don't like keeping anything with ammunition here. And we are going to lock the slide to the rear, and we are going to demonstrate that the magazine is gone and there is no round in the chamber whatsoever. There is no other ammunition around this workspace, so this weapon is clear and safe. Now we will break it down to its field strip. And there we go. The pistol is very easy to actually field strip. The only thing missing here is just a magazine, which I threw underneath the table. So now let's start with the slide assembly breakdown, and just drop those in my bin there. Now, you can really use most of these punches that I got here. I typically like to use this, I think it's a 1/16. Yeah, the 1/16 punch. And I also like to use this 3/32 punch. And I'll get over that in a little bit, but basically you can never go wrong by having multiple punch sets. The actual Glock tool that Glock sells for this, I believe, is probably closer to this 3/32 punch. I can't remember on the top of my head exactly what it is. I have that tool lying around here somewhere, but I'd rather just use a punch set. So we're going to start this by pushing down on the channel liner right in here. We're going to push down on that, and then we can take off this back plate. Careful not to let the fire control, well, not fire control group, but the fire pin assembly pop out at you. You can also remove this plunger. Now we remove the extractor here by pushing down on this little plunger here. That pops out, and then this will just slide right out. And the spring will come right out of there. We can drop all these parts in here so none of them roll off on my table. Now I will break down the fire pin assembly, which is pretty easy. You just grab onto the spring up here, and then you just kind of take off the little caps there. Careful not to let this spring fly out and hit you. As you can see there, I got the spring right there, got the firing pin, have the channel liner for the firing pin, and then I have the little caps that hold it there. Now normally you don't necessarily need to do this when you're cleaning, but I sometimes like to do it just because sometimes some stuff can kind of get around in this area, and I like to get that area cleaned really good. But not necessarily need to. I don't believe in Glock's breakdown, how you're supposed to do it. They say you need to do that when you're just cleaning it. You actually probably don't need to break down this slide as much as I'm breaking it down to clean it. But this is a full disassembly, so I'm showing that. Now the only part I haven't taken off on this is just the sights, which I don't have the sight tool to remove the front sight. All you need is a tool that's a little hexagon kind of screwdriver that kind of takes off this screw here to take off the front. The rear sight, you can actually just use a punch and push it off, but they're better tools so you won't scrape this up to take it off. I don't have that actually right now, and I don't really have 9mm ammo to line my sights back up, so I'm not going to do that. The only other thing is the channel liner, which is in the barrel here. Well, where the, not the barrel, the, where the fire pin sits, is right in here. You see I'm kind of poking at it. Now, there's a tool to actually get this out. It's kind of hard to get it out without that tool. I'm just going to leave it in there for now because it really doesn't need to be removed. I'll remove it every couple of range trips just to get it clean in there, but it really doesn't need to be removed. But just know that the channel liner is still in there. Now let's move on to the lower half of the firearm. Now this is pretty simple process too. We just have these two pins here. We have this one in the rear and this one in the front. The front one's kind of the first one that you usually want to. I kind of like to push up on the trigger. It makes getting it out a little easier. So we just gotta push this pin out. Sometimes it helps to wiggle, like you see what I did there with the slide release. You wiggle on the slide release a little bit and it'll help you push out that pin. Now it's definitely a lot easier to push it from this side to this side, because if you do it this side to the other side, these little locks will just relock themselves in with the slide release. So definitely a lot easier pushing it through this way. But you can push it through the other way. Just know that it's going to take more time. Much easier to do this way. Now we'll push out this pin. Let's get that a little bit more. There we go. We remove the rear pin. And now we need to remove this part. This is a part where it's nice to have a little bit bigger punch so it doesn't really bend like that other one was bending. So that's why I like to keep multiple punches on standby, you know. Now the rest of the assembly will just lift out, especially the slide release. I'm not going to take off this little spring just because it doesn't really need to be removed. I mean, you can just push it down, take it out. I'm just going to leave it on. Pull out the trigger assembly, or the fire control group, whichever you want to call it. And then this simply just takes apart by just kind of twisting that right there, and it comes right off. That is off. Now we can take this further apart by removing this pin, but I'm not going to do that. It really doesn't need to be removed. Kind of a pain to get it back in there because you see there's no other spot to push it through. I believe this is canted. I've actually never taken this off, but really all it does is hold in the trigger safety and the fire control bar, I guess is what you call it, trigger bar. So that's it for that. Let's take apart this a little bit more. So all we do here is we just got to push out this, through this hole right here, we can push out this little metal bar. I forget my terminology for some of these parts, but see, that just slides right out. And now we can get the ejector out by just pushing back here on this one. Now this is where you want to have this smaller one, because you see this one's a little bit too fat to get in there, this punch. So it's kind of nice to have that slightly smaller one. That just slides right out. Now for the rest here, we just push on the spring there and you see how pops out. Now this is actually a little bit different than most Glocks. I believe they're starting to do this on more of the Gen 5s or even the other 43X and the 48, but they're moving over to using this kind of little device here. On the other ones it's different. I don't really know how to explain it without showing you, But maybe in another video I'll take apart my Glock 17 or my Glock 26 and show you. But you see now that is fully disassembled right there. And we can take apart this further by just twisting this. You can see that it's nice and open space right there. So we're just going to twist that. Careful that that spring doesn't pop out and hit you in the eye. But you see it's not under too much tension there. And we can take off this spring. And then we have this kind of weird shaped little catapult looking bar. Let's see if we can get that to focus a little bit better. Yeah. Now the only other thing left is the slide release. All we got to do here is just push down on it and sort of push it over to one side. Careful because there is a spring underneath there and it is under a little bit of tension, so we don't want that to pop out. I usually like to just put my finger there so it doesn't shoot me in the eye. There's the slide release. Now it's important to remember that this, with the little hang off area here, this groove area, always has to go forward on the pistol here. So see, this side is all smooth, that side goes to the rear that way. This side with this little ledge here goes forward. Now that's very important to do when you reassemble this. Now we just got that little spring there. And there's our spring. And that's it. This is pretty much fully disassembled except for the mag release and this little laser light I got on. Again, I don't want to remove this because I don't have ammo to realign it. I do have a little laser on there that is sighted in, so I don't want to reset that. Really, there's just two screws that hold this whole assembly in. Very simple, very easy to actually remove. Actually, there's three, my bad. And then it just kind of comes in half. And the mag release here we can remove by removing the little bar right here that kind of acts like a spring or tension to actually hold the mag release in. I don't really want to try and get that out because it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to leave that in. But there you have it. As you can see here, we have all the parts right in there. Try and get this in frame. And it is fully disassembled. The only thing missing from this is the magazine, but like I said before, I don't want to keep the ammunition here on this workstation. This has already been cleared and safe, and these parts are kind of oily, so we don't want to get my nice self-defense ammo all oily and not working. But now let's put this back together. So I'm going to start with putting back together the fire control group. Set that aside because that's going with the lower assembly too. Move some of these bigger parts out of the way. I'm not worried about those getting lost. Really, really nice, by the way, having a little bin that you can put stuff in, because I've tried doing this before on kitchen counters and I always lose springs, and it sucks looking around on the floor for 30 minutes trying to find a spring, wondering if you got to order a new one. So this parts bin has definitely been able to save me a lot of time by doing this. Let's see. Now, we definitely don't want to get these springs too mixed up here. As you can see, these two springs are very similar, but they are different, so we want to definitely separate those. This one goes to the slide release, and the other one goes to the fire control group. So I'm just going to kind of set that aside right there. But you definitely don't want to get those mixed up. Right. So you see we're going to just put back the spring there. We're going to put it in here. Now you want the little slanted area here to be this direction. I don't know if you can see that very well on my camera. Take that off of there. So you definitely want this to sit in here like this. Right? Not like that, like this. Put that back on there. Put in the ejector. Sorry about my mismatching gloves, by the way. I couldn't find two that matched, so I just went with these. They work. They don't get my hands all oily. And when you put this in, you just need to kind of slide this forward part up here on the trigger right down in there, and then this other part is going to go into this hole on this side, so you just kind of gently push it in there and it'll follow right in. And then this part needs to sit underneath this lip right here. So careful that you don't try and ram it in there while it's like that, otherwise it won't fit in properly. So that's all put together, so we can drop that back into our frame. Drop the slide release. That will hold in there. Now we can put back the slide release here, or the slide breakdown. Drop down this little spring. See if we can do it this way. Now, what I like to do is I like to take one of these punches and push it through, and then push the spring gently down while I put the slide release in on the other side. This is so that the spring doesn't kind of get mixed up in there or torqued. You just got to kind of slowly back up my spring. There we go. If you can see, that spring is perfectly aligned in there. So what I was doing there is I was holding it so that this doesn't catch on and push it over. I did do that accidentally with the first time I've ever broken down this pistol a few years ago. So that's just a little helpful tip if you ever get one of these and you're trying to figure out how to put that on, because this is a little bit different than how the old school Glocks are with the little bar here. It's just got a spring now, and I think they're doing this more on more of their Gen 5s. I think they're also doing that on the 43Xs and the 48s. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's what they're doing. Now that the lower half is all done and set, we can work on our upper half. Now let's start by putting back together the firing pin. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm doing this is I like to take another punch, a much bigger punch here. I like to, this one's a little bit too small. Let's try and get a bigger one. Yep, so that will fit in there and hold it. And when I have this in here like this, and I'm trying to push down on the spring, this is going to hold the firing pin from dropping. So when I push it in here like this, I can just stand it up and hold it down with one hand without this falling. Now you see that's in there well, it's not going to slide out. So that's why we want to have a big enough punch in there to do that. And we are carefully want to grab our little plastic caps here that hold it. We don't want to lose those. Careful that you don't release this too soon and have it go off in your eye. That won't be good. But you see, I've done this so many times that I can do it very quickly. So the firing pin assembly is all set. I'm just going to put this halfway in there now. We can't push it fully in there because we need to put this plunger in, and for that we need to put the extractor on. I'll show you here why you actually almost lost that. Why we need this plunger in here. And this is very slippery, as you can tell. And you can see on this plunger there's two sides. There's this side that's got this little indent here, and on the face of the firing pin there's also an indent in there, and those are supposed to line up. So that will tell you which direction you actually need to put this plunger in, is you need to put it in this way so it sits with the firing pin. This other side of it, this smooth side of it here, this is for the extractor to kind of seat into, so it's going to sit in there sort of like that. Just like that. So drop our spring in there. Now you want to be careful that that spring actually makes it in to that hole and stays in there on that plunger, so that it's not going in there cockeyed or any other way, so it's going to work properly and it's not going to get all bent up. So it's in there properly right now. We drop in our extractor, and you want to push down on that plunger a little bit so it will catch on and hold that. Now that is under a little bit of spring tension, so careful that you don't knock that out by pushing down on this, because this will just pop out, and I've lost that spring before doing that. So I like to put my finger on there and hold there while I get ready to push down on there, because I need to. Okay, that is in. Okay. Now we can put this plunger in. Now this part of the plunger goes rearward and this part goes forward to kind of push up against the extractor there and hold it. And we can put on our back plate, which holds it all in together. Now, I like to use the smaller punch for this one here, so that I can kind of catch on there a little bit more. There we go. The upper slide is fully assembled now. I am going to come back here because I didn't put these pins in, which I need to do real quick. Definitely don't forget those. Okay, that one is in. And again, from this one, you want to start on Oh, you can actually do it easier on this side when putting it back in. Is when you're taking it out, you want to push it from that side. So see if we can. There we go. And it clicked. It's on there. Now we can drop the barrel and the recoil spring. Function check is working, and that's it. Oh, thank you, and I'll see you next time.